That's right. They had this suspect. They were questioning him just on the next block, an hour and a half before the alleged murder for an unrelated crime, a trespass allegation. But police say they didn't have any evidence that he was trespassing. The homeowner apparently didn't want to press charges, so they let him go with a warning, and then he came here. The apparent murder in the backyard of this house on Maryland Drive shocked the residents of this quiet Beverly Grove neighborhood. A man believed to be 30 years old stabbed to death Monday afternoon, allegedly by a suspect seen earlier trespassing nearby.
And I had ran into my neighbor who told me about him going in between the properties. I was like, holy hell, that could have been one of us.
Craig Brill lives around the corner on 5th. Says neighbors called police Monday afternoon about a trespasser. Police tell us they did respond, talked with the suspect. The homeowner did not want to press charges, so they left. 1 to 2 hours later, the alleged murder. Brill's convinced it's the same suspect.
It's pretty disturbing. I mean, I just thought he was someone who needed help moving his car, and he goes walking off, and next thing you know, you hear he stabbed someone.
Neighbors believe the man may have been living in his van that Brill saw him walk away from. They say the homeless crisis is an ongoing issue for them, with a large encampment just down the street outside of Big 5 at San Vicente in Wilshire.
Maybe the intent wasn't to murder, but the intent was to rob someone's house. That is a huge red flag for this neighborhood, which is otherwise extremely safe.
It's disturbing to even hear that something like this could happen in this neighborhood. This is such a safe neighborhood. I've been here for practically 30 years. I grew up in this neighborhood right down the street.
And in a bizarre twist, police say this all ended after the murder suspect ran off back to 5th Street, where he entered this house and took his own life. Apparently, the suspect took his own life with the same knife he allegedly committed murder with. I got a chance to ask LAPD Chief Michael Moore early this afternoon about that encounter between his officers and the suspect. At the time, they didn't know he was obviously going to commit an alleged murder, but it was an hour and a half before this happened. And what went down?
Made contact with the individual that was reportedly trespassing. He had expressed that he had some car trouble. We offered help, which he declined. And he did not meet was not committing a crime at that point, and did not appear to pose an imminent risk to himself or others for any type of mental health hold.
That's the 5150 law that we often talk about. If someone is a serious threat to themselves or others, police can take them into custody for a 72-hour psychiatric hold. That did not appear to be the case with the officers at the time. Of course, this is all still under investigation. It's just about 24 hours old, Alex and Christine. We are not releasing the name of the victim. The coroner has not made it official, nor the alleged suspect who died with that knife in a house nearby. Police and neighbors believe that that suspect lived in his van on the streets around Beverly Grove.
You know,
Reporting live, I'm Phil Schuman. Alex, Christine, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we think of our own neighborhoods where we see people living in their vehicles that tend to be on that same street for a period of time. Did neighbors say they had seen that van for a while, or was it fairly new?
Actually, Craig Brill, the gentleman I spoke with, said that he had not seen that van before. His house happens to be on an alley where a lot of homeless come and go, and he said that that van was new to the neighborhood. Yeah, but they said this is just an ongoing issue, and like so many neighborhoods, frustrated by little action, what little action can be taken.
Oh, terribly sad.